Alright, just got the fuel lines run to the tank, pulled out the old lines and ran the new ones. Bit of a pain. I had to drop the back of the fuel tank. Well, I guess it'd be the front of the fuel tank. The front ones are easier to access. The bolts, that is. So I dropped those. That lowers it a little bit, gives you a couple millimeters extra room. But kind of a pain to get those lines down there, but they went down there. One of my roommates helped me get the rest of the way down. So we are now to the point where I've got the fuel lines run, the old lines are taken out. I had to pull the charcoal canister and some stuff to make some room so I could get in there. But for now, I should just have to start looking at ways to mount this stuff. So I've got the completed fuel pressure regulator. I've got a bracket to mount it with, and I've just got to find a place to mount that, the flex fuel sensor, and the fuel filter, which is under the car right now. I was actually just trying to figure out a place to mount that. So I'll kind of show you what we did. So you can't really see much, but those are the lines going down there. There's a really short one that's going to go to the return on the bottom side of the tank there. So he's gonna come in right here, and then this longer one is the feed, and that's going to go up to there. So basically, this guy is going to kind of pull in and slide over to about there. But yeah, they're marked, and this is almost ready to go up here. Just got to get those connectors attached to the fuel lines and buttoned up, and then I think we can probably close up this lid. As far as under the car, a little different story. I'll take you down there and show you. Alright, as you can see, this is the underside of the car looking towards the front. So back here we've got the lines coming down right there. This is the return, so that will be attaching to the flex fuel sensor right about here and heading back up there. This is the feed, so that'll be attaching up somewhere up here to the fuel filter, and he is going to sit kind of up here, something like that, and probably vertically like that, so that the line can hit it easily. And then I gotta make a hole to mount everything up there, so that's gotta get a hole drilled. Same thing for the flex fuel sensor. That'll be mounted somewhere around here, so you can see it's on the frame rail, but it's on this little upward curving part, so it won't actually be near the underside of the car, so it'll be kind of protected. And then the fuel pressure regulator will be up here, where the mounting holes are for the old fuel filter. So kind of all that's going to come together and be all mounted up there. I've got to move some of this stuff out of the way, air filter and some stuff from the charcoal canister, but I'll get all that stuff out of the way and start getting the goods mounted up here. It's been a pretty interesting journey so far. Alright, we got to try to install this fuel filter. So I've got a bracket that I'm going to be putting into here. It's going to mount right about here. In order to put this in, we need to use riv nuts, which are these little kind of rivets that contain threading, so that we can thread the bolt into here. This is just sheet metal. We can't tap it. There's just not enough depth to grab a good threading on it. So we're going to install a riv nut. So I have to drill a hole here. It's going to be I believe it's going to be an M10, and then we're going to go ahead and install the nut with a special tool. You can also use a normal nut and some washers, but in this case we're going to use a tool because hopefully it'll be easier. I was thinking about taking this off because this bracket's a little in the way let me do that really quick. Okay, come in here, right about there's where we want to go. Hole drilled. And the rib that I'm putting in here looks like this. So it's basically just a little thing with some ribs on it. And then this part here squishes down flat, and this flange holds it up against the thing. So, alright, so here's the tool we're using. Basically works like this. As you squeeze the handle, the top moves in and out. So, as it moves, it will draw those threads in, pinch the end of the bolt, or draw the end of the bolt in against the back side of this and actually pinch it in. You gotta be careful. With these, you do have enough torque that you can tear it right out, so you can actually tear the threads out of there, and then it's useless. You'll have to, drill it out or something to get that thing out of there. So you do have to be careful. It takes a touch to do it. So we'll see if I've got that touch. So to do this, and it screws on to the front of this guy. Thread him on, so make sure he's in there. Doesn't have to be all the way on, it just has to be all the way onto these threads at the end. You don't want to leave a bunch of threads that aren't attached, because it's going to need all that torque. So right there is probably good. So you can see when I pull on this, it's going to draw it backwards. And there's two knobs on the back of here. This guy lets you thread the bolt in and out, and the other one takes the die out for different sizes of the different size threads, depending on what you're doing. So let's give this a shot and see if we can't make this do something. I think I'm already at the limit here. This just seems really loose. This thing's really annoying. Alright, we're back, and I'm using a mild steel nut instead of that stainless steel nut. Maybe it'll be a little easier. Alright, well, that one's actually starting to deform. Does not feel like it's going anywhere. It feels like it's in there pretty good. Can try to thread in a little bit more and give it another like. Nope, that's it, she's in. So you can kind of feel the torque increase pretty quickly at the end. So now you just kind of unscrew that. There we go. Now we've got a little nut in there with threads in it, and that's going to hold on to the fuel filter mount. So there you go. That is the test fitting of my little fuel filter clamp. So that should hold on there. It holds onto there pretty sturdy. Like, this doesn't even rotate inside of here. This is just with PLA. Like I said, I'm going to be doing this in PETG. So I will reprint that in the final material and finish mounting everything. Alright guys, it's the next day and I got the final print done. This is done in PETG. So this is going to be a lot stronger than the PLA prints, even though they look pretty big and beefy. This is actually a more flexible plastic, and it's also so it's not as brittle. One of the modifications I made is that you can see these are kind of misaligned, but as the fuel filter stretches this out a little bit, these holes come into alignment. So I also made that change just so that it would be a little easier to put this on. Already got the rivet in, so I'm going to go ahead and test fit this again. That fits in there pretty well with that washer, so I'm probably just going to go ahead and use that. Let's see if it fits. If not, I'll just be very disappointed. So it's actually really tight. Like, these pieces have come together really, really closely, so this should actually be holding on quite well to this. And boy, that doesn't move, doesn't rotate, doesn't slide. Man, that is in there. Yeah, I like that. So this is also should be good from the heat. Now there shouldn't be too much heat back here, There's nothing really in this area that's going to heat up. The only heat is going to be coming from over on the side here where the exhaust is, so that should be far enough away that's not really affected. Plus, this has a much higher glass transition temperature than PLA. Not as high as ABS, but it prints really well, and I don't think that it's going to have a lot of heat issues down here. I'll check on it occasionally while I'm doing the tuning and whatnot, just to make sure all this stuff is still intact and not bending or warping or anything like that. So I like it. So I'm gonna go ahead and mock up some more stuff, and if that's how it's gonna work, I'll start tightening down these AN fittings. All right, it's really hard to see it, but right up top here there is a elbow that screws onto this fuel filter. That's the flow in from the tank. So the fuel will flow in from the tank from the top of here, flows through the filter, comes into this T. Now this T has two outlets, and what this is doing is it's closer to the factory system than a flow-through setup. So you have a fuel pressure regulator that regulates the pressure of the fuel by basically opening a valve that kind of dumps some of the pressure back to the tank. So what this is doing is this regulates the pressure, and whatever it doesn't need, whatever is extra pressure, extra flow, it dumps back to the fuel tank. So what we're doing here, I should start by saying the factory. So let me start by saying the factory system does this, except this is sitting inside the fuel tank itself. And the regulator itself regulates how much fuel is coming back into the tank. In this case, we've got it external from the tank. So this is the fuel pressure regulator. This is the adjustment of how much pressure. We've got a gauge on the front here. So what happens is that the main flow of fuel is through this T and then along this braided line all the way up to the front of the car. The pressure regulator here, this T off here goes into the side of the regulator, all right? And then the regulator has an output at the top, which is kind of hard to see here. But there's an output at the top of the regulator up here. This output is fed back to the tank. So, if I can let this kind of get around here. So this output here goes back to the tank, and the way it does that is it comes around, all right, and it goes through this flex fuel sensor. Now this guy is going to be actually mounted up right about here, but it goes through that flex fuel sensor, so there's a constant flow of fuel going through that sensor. So regardless of how much fuel is actually flowing through this main line here, we can tell the the amount of ethanol in the fuel that's in the tank. Now that then returns back up to the tank. So the output here goes back, and that is a return to the tank. So that basically spills right back into the tank. There's just an open hose inside, and it just kind of dumps it right back down in there. So this is the system as it will sit. Nothing's clamped down yet. Nothing's screwed in hard. This is just kind of a test fitting to make sure everything fits and seems to work without running into stuff. Now you can see I've added some plastic to these hoses. All of these hoses have this plastic corrugated tubing on that, and what that is to prevent the stainless steel hose from rubbing through any other metal. So the stainless steel is pretty abrasive, and if it rubs on anything, it'll basically rub through it. It's like a file. So what that does is it kind of helps keep that metal from rubbing against other metal, other important things like this brake line and that kind of stuff, so that we don't run into any issues. So with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and start clamping everything down, and then we'll start getting this main fuel line here run all along the holes up to the front. Alright, and without getting RTV everywhere, I'm going to kind of push this in here. It's going to probably make a little bit of a mess. Alright, I think that's it. Seems pretty firmly in there. Alright, just got to thread that bolt in and do the other one. Okay, so get ready to put this stuff together, and just like before with the A's are all AN lines, so need to oil the threads, make sure the flare is clean, install it finger tight, and then do a quarter turn more after that as the general rule, or 29 foot-pounds I think is what Flying Me Out quoted. Alright, what I think I'm going to do is I can bend this down a little bit, so I'm going to pull this down and kind of face it out, and that should let me get up behind it enough that I can tighten this down. Hopefully the filter won't run into this too much, but I'm going to make do with what I got here. Oh, son of a... I jumped off the nut. Alright, that's it. I was really worried that I broke the flare. The last thing I want to do is break one of these hoses because there's such a pain. So I think I'm going to put him up here. I'm going to get that clamp installed, and then I'll start attaching the other stuff just so that everything kind of lines up. Yeah, she's in there pretty good. I do not know what it is, but she does not want to go on. And there's a quarter turn. There we go. Alright. So now that guy's fitting is on there. These, I know they rotate, but they got two O-rings inside, so they're held on just like the factory ones are, except they thread in here, so this can't slide off. So instead of that press lock deal, they've just got a thread in that locks it on, but it's got two O-rings inside, and that's what holds the pressure in. Okay, I can hook up this guy right here, which goes to that, and I can hook up this guy, which is going to go to this right here. Ta-da! Okay, so let's get these all oiled up, ready to go. My game plan is to hook this to here, then tighten that down, which should kind of hold this in place. Oh, that is a tight fit. Alright. All these guys should be on now. The only thing we got left is this one, which is going to be the route to the front. I'm not going to do that right now just because I have to route that whole cable up there. Well, I mean, everything seems to be in place and seems to be happy, so, you know, I don't see anything causing problems. This is far enough away from this brake line. This is not hitting here. This is rubbing up against this housing, but I don't think it's going to be a big problem because it's shielded. Other than that, you know, the gauge is accessible. I just got to bolt this up. Alright, here's a quick overview. Got the flex fuel sensor mounted, attached. The T goes into the fuel filter attached, so this is the output from the tank. We got this line coming off of that, going into the fuel pressure regulator. gauge is on, output of the fuel pressure regulator goes into the flex fuel sensor and then return to the tank. And all that stuff is clamped in, clamped down. Pretty sure it's all tight. So hopefully we have no leaks. Last thing to do is this, but I'm just gonna have to wait on that until I get this line run, which I might not do tonight because it's getting pretty late and I still gotta change the oil in the Maxima. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. So really all that's got to happen back here is we just have to wire in the lines from the flex fuel sensor. There's a couple connectors back here I may be able to use, but we'll see. They previously went to some of the emissions control systems. But other than that, this is pretty much done back here. Later in the future, if we do want to run manifold referenced fuel pressure, we'll have to install this line. I think for now, just as it is, this is going to stay disconnected, but later on I might run another line back here to handle increasing the fuel pressure as boost pressure goes up. So last thing I got to do is to run a fuel line up along the rail here. So I have removed the hard lines, and now that they're out of here, I just have to run the new fuel line along this area here. There's a few provisions for hose clamps already. I might try to reuse these, and we'll see how far I get with that. Alright, I think that's going to be my routing for now. I've still got a whole lot of line up front, and I've got to figure out where I'm going to be fastening this down in the engine bay. I'd like to put another one here, but for now I don't have a hole, so I'm just going to leave that empty. I'll come back and throw a hole in there and probably mount that a little later. So for now I'm just going to leave this kind of loose. I'm just going to snug these guys up a little bit just to kind of hold this in place. And make a note that I'm going to have to tighten this down before I actually get into putting the transmission and everything back into here, just so that I've got an idea of where everything is going to be going. So, alright, so that pretty much wraps up the fuel system. You can see our final line here comes up into the engine bay. Still got to hook that up to the fuel rail via the T and get all that bolted in. So I'm going to wait until the engine's about to go in because I've got to build the fuel rail still. All that's got to be bolted to the intake manifold and aligned, so we'll go ahead and wait on that for now. So that's the fuel system installed and ready to rock. I know this is definitely not taken at the same time as there's a TV behind me and I'm wearing a different shirt. I have to apologize for taking so long with these videos. I've just been swamped with a lot of things, and honestly, after working on this car and work all day long, it takes a lot to go through and edit videos. And I really feel for the YouTubers that are uploading every day, that are editing videos constantly. I mean, it requires some real dedication to do that kind of thing. For me, I'll just be kind of lazy and decide, oh, I'm just not going to upload today and go to sleep. But it's a lot of work, and I appreciate those guys online who I watch who are always uploading stuff, always have new content out there. I realize how hard it is, now with trying to do this series. That's one of the things I wanted to do, was try to do this sort of thing and see how hard it could be, and what it means to do this. So I appreciate, all you guys who are sticking with me through this. Thanks for watching, and let's keep going, and I'll see you on the next video.